Have you ever looked at your life and quietly wondered, is this it? Waking up to the same alarm clock every morning, fighting traffic on roads that feel more like battlegrounds than pathways, sitting in an office chair or behind a counter, staring at screens or numbers, getting through one shift only to prepare for the next. Then you come home too tired to even speak to the people you love. You sleep and it all starts again, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year. Is this really what life was meant to be? This pattern, this cycle of existing rather than living makes the soul feel empty. Even when your hands are full, your heart feels hollow. And that's not failure. That's a sign from Allah Almighty that you weren't created for this alone. Your life wasn't meant to be a countdown to the weekend. It wasn't meant to be defined by bills, survival, or job titles. You were created for something more, for something sacred, something eternal. Allah Almighty didn't place you on this earth to just chase money and security. When He created the first human being, He didn't give him a job description with salary brackets and deadlines. He placed him in a garden, not as a worker, but as a guardian, a steward, a soul with responsibility, a creation of honor. He was entrusted, not employed. He was given a purpose, not pressured by a paycheck. Work was always part of life, but never as a punishment. It was never meant to be slavery to a system. It was designed to be meaningful, to contribute to something greater than yourself, to help others, to build, to serve. But slowly the world took that meaning and replaced it with stress. It turned work into a burden. It made success about what you earn, not what you become. The Quran reminds us clearly, and I did not create mankind except to worship me. Worship here isn't just prayer in a masjid or words whispered in the dark of night. Worship means living with intention. It means that every single act, when done with sincerity, becomes sacred. Raising your children with kindness is worship. Feeding your family is worship. Smiling through difficulty for the sake of Allah Almighty is worship. Even working to earn an honest living becomes worship if your heart remains attached to Him, not to the money. But here's the problem. When you forget the reason why you work, the work itself becomes heavier. You begin to chase status. You begin to measure yourself through job titles and what others think of you. And the more you chase people's approval, the more distant you feel from your Creator. Because the soul cannot be nourished by promotions. It cannot be fulfilled by applause. It was never designed to thrive on worldly praise. It was designed to submit to Allah Almighty. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, Allah loves it when any of you does something, He does it with excellence. That includes your job. That includes every responsibility you carry. But it must be done with sincerity, with the intention to please Allah Almighty. When your intention shifts from survival to sincerity, even the same task feels different. The stress lessens, the heart becomes calm. The eyes begin to see the bigger picture. Look around you. How many people are physically alive but spiritually asleep? How many wake up only to endure the day, not to live it? They're not lazy. They're not careless. They're just lost in a system that promised comfort but delivered anxiety. Lost in a world that rewards speed but forgets meaning. And it's not their fault. It's just that no one reminded them. You weren't created for this. You were created for more than deadlines, more than duties, more than daily exhaustion. You were created to wake up with a sense of direction, to walk through life with peace, to know that your worth is not in your income, but in your intention. You don't have to quit your job to live this way, but you do have to change how you think. You do have to return your heart to the one who created it. You do have to pause in the middle of the chaos and ask, what am I really chasing? Is it numbers in a bank account? Or is it nearness to Allah Almighty? Is it approval from people? Forget your name the moment you leave the room. Or is it the eternal reward from the one who never forgets you, not even for a moment? You were not placed here to just survive Monday through Friday. You were created to live a legacy of sincerity, of love, of service, of faith. You were created to live a life that prepares you for something far greater. So today, pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, am I just surviving? Or am I living with the purpose Allah Almighty gave me? Because the moment you stop chasing survival and start walking in purpose, everything begins to change. Have you ever received something you thought would make you happy? A job you worked hard for, a promotion you hoped would bring security, a new title that others respected, yet found yourself still feeling empty. You got what you wanted. You succeeded in the world's eyes, but your heart, it still wasn't full. That's not failure. That's a reminder from Allah Almighty that your soul was not created to be fulfilled by worldly things. A career may provide income, but only your calling provides meaning. A position can fill your schedule, but only purpose can fill your heart. What you do from 9 to 5 might pay the bills, but it can never pay for peace. That kind of peace, deep, lasting, soul nourishing peace, comes only when you start living for what you were created for. And that's the truth most people forget. You are not created to chase titles. You are created to walk in truth. The world tells you to build a resume, but Allah Almighty invites you to build a soul. The world celebrates promotions, but your Creator rewards sincerity. The world says, climb higher, but your Lord says, bow low. I say, indeed my prayer, my sacrifice, my living and my dying are for Allah, Lord of the worlds. This verse is the foundation of every believer's life. It means that everything you do, whether it's raising a family, working a shift, writing an email or standing in prayer, can become worship. It's not about what you do, it's about why you do it and for whom. Some people work in grand offices with high salaries. Others sweep floors or deliver packages. But in the sight of Allah Almighty, it is not the position that matters. It is the intention. It is the heart. The person who works with sincerity, who speaks the truth even when it's hard, who helps others without expecting anything in return. They may be unknown to the world, but they are honored in the heavens. The Prophet Muhammad, be upon him, said, the most beloved of people to Allah is the one who brings the most benefit to others. That is your real job description. You were created to benefit, to serve, to bring light. Your career may change with time, but your calling remains the same. And that calling is tied to your Creator, not to your company. So many people live their entire lives trying to impress others. They pursue degrees they don't love. They chase careers they don't believe in. They say yes to paths that lead them away from their soul. Why? Because the world taught them that success is loud, that success is money, fame, applause. But true success is quiet. It is peaceful. It is found in the smile of someone you helped, in the tear of someone you lifted, in the dua of a mother, the prayer of a stranger, the forgiveness of someone you were kind to. That is what matters, and that is what lasts. You don't need to be known by millions to matter to Allah Almighty. You don't need to wear a suit to be honorable. You don't need a title to walk in purpose. You only need one thing: sincerity. When your actions are for His sake, everything becomes meaningful. Even the tasks the world calls small, ask yourself, what am I really chasing? A job that looks good on paper, or a life that feels right in the heart? When you chase your calling, everything changes. You stop comparing yourself to others. You stop measuring your worth by likes, followers, or job reviews. You begin to see yourself the way Allah Almighty sees you, as a servant with sacred potential. And here's the secret: your calling is not something you apply for. It's something you discover in your heart. It may not come with a salary, but it comes with satisfaction. It may not be glamorous, but it is grounded. It may not earn applause, but it earns reward. Some of the most impactful people in the world are not those with the biggest platforms, but those who live with the biggest hearts. They serve quietly, they speak kindly, they sacrifice joyfully, and their reward, it's written with ink that never fades. So take a moment today, reflect, pause the noise, and ask yourself, am I just building a career, or am I living my calling? Because when you start walking the path Allah Almighty created for you, the heart begins to rest and the soul begins to bloom. You were not created to impress people. You were created to please your Lord. And that purpose is greater than any position the world can offer. How many times have you checked your bank balance with anxiety? How often have you worried about a delayed salary, an upcoming expense, or the fear of losing a job? These thoughts don't just affect your mind, they weigh down your heart, your sleep, your peace. It feels like your whole life depends on a number, a paycheck, a payment clearing on time. But that's not the truth. That's not your real source of provision. That's just a system. The real provider is Allah Almighty, and He never runs out. It's easy to get caught in the illusion that our employers feed us, our jobs sustain us, and our business deals decide our future. But none of these are the source. They are only the tools. The one who writes your provision is above the heavens, and His mercy is not limited by contracts, clients, or company budgets. His treasures are vast, His planning is perfect, and His timing never fails. The Quran clearly states, indeed Allah is the best provider. This one verse, if deeply believed, can lift the heaviest burdens off your heart. It reminds you that no matter what happens in the economy, whether the stock market crashes, the business shuts down, or your job ends, your sustenance is still guaranteed by the one who created you. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, gave us a beautiful image when he said, if you were to rely upon Allah as He should be relied upon, He would provide for you as He provides for the birds. They leave their nests hungry and return. Birds don't have savings accounts. They don't work office hours. They don't have emergency funds. Yet they go out in the morning with trust and return in the evening with peace. Why? Because they live on the promise that Allah Almighty never abandons His creation. That promise is for you too. It's for the mother wondering how to pay for her child's school. It's for the man who lost his job after years of service. It's for the student struggling with fees. It's for the shop owner trying to survive one more day. Allah Almighty sees you, He hears you, and He already knows the answer to the worry that keeps you up at night. When you believe that your job is your provider, every shake in the system becomes a crisis. But when you believe that Allah Almighty is your provider, no crisis can shake your heart. You work not in panic but in peace. You plan not in fear but in trust. Because you know that the one who fed you in the past will feed you again, and better. Does this mean you stop working? No. It means you stop worshipping the work. You stop tying your worth to your wages. You begin to work with honesty, with dignity, and with detachment. You do your best, and then you leave the rest to Allah Almighty. There's something incredibly freeing about realizing that your salary isn't the final say, that your savings are not your safety net, that your employer isn't in control, only Allah Almighty is. And He has promised, if you walk in obedience, if you stay true to your faith, if you trust Him, He will provide for you in ways you never expected. We see this truth in every generation. Prophet Yusuf was thrown into a well, yet Allah Almighty raised him to rule a kingdom. Prophet Musa was placed in a river as a baby, yet he was returned to his mother and grew up in a palace. Maryam had no husband, no support, no wealth, yet Allah Almighty provided food directly to her. These are not just stories, these are signs. Signs that your provision was never in the hands of people, it was always with Allah Almighty. So the next time fear whispers, what if the money runs out? Respond with faith, even if it does, Allah Almighty will never run out. Don't build your peace on a salary that can be delayed, reduced, or taken away. Build your peace on the promise of the one who never forgets, never fails, and never withholds what is meant for you. Your provider is Allah Almighty, and He is enough. Have you ever felt like you were made for more than just following instructions? Like deep inside there's a voice whispering that you weren't created just to receive orders, meet deadlines, and survive week to week. That voice is not pride, it's not arrogance, it's your fitrah, your original nature, reminding you that Allah Almighty created you with a noble purpose, not just to work under pressure, but to lead with purpose. The world wants to train you to be a worker, a replaceable part of a system, someone who clocks in and clocks out, someone who waits for permission to act. But Allah Almighty didn't place you on this earth just to obey the world's systems. He placed you here to carry a trust, to lead with responsibility, to live with influence. Even if no one gives you a title, your life has already been appointed by the one who created you. The Quran says, and He made you successors upon the earth. You are not an accident. You are not here randomly. You have been given a role, a divine responsibility, a role that doesn't require a desk, a degree, or a position of authority. It requires sincerity. It requires courage, and it requires the mindset of a shepherd. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, each of you is a shepherd and each of you is responsible for his flock. This hadith is not just for leaders of nations, it is for you. It is for the mother raising her children. It is for the student guiding friends toward truth. It is for the father providing with patience. It is for the believer making choices that affect others. Leadership in Islam begins with responsibility, not recognition. Think about the prophets. None of them waited for official positions before they began their missions. They didn't chase worldly leadership, yet they led with integrity, with compassion, with strength. Prophet Yusuf led a nation through crisis. Prophet Musab stood against tyranny. Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, transformed hearts and societies without wealth, armies, or political power, just with truth and sincerity. Leadership isn't about being above others. It's about being accountable to Allah Almighty for how you influence others. It's not about control. It's about care. It's not about commanding. It's about carrying the weight of guidance, of example, of service. You may not run a company, but you run your character. You manage your time. You make decisions. And every single one of those choices leads someone, your child, your sibling, your neighbor, your co-worker. Even when you don't realize it, someone is watching how you speak, how you respond, how you act. And that means you already leading. Don't let the world convince you that leadership only belongs to people in suits or on stages. Leadership in Islam begins in the heart. It is rooted in humility and grown through trust in Allah Almighty. The best leaders are not always the loudest. They are the ones who carry their responsibility quietly and fulfill it with excellence. When Adam was placed in the garden, he wasn't given a job title. He was entrusted with care, with stewardship. He was told to nurture, protect, and walk with purpose. That hasn't changed. You are still a caretaker, still a successor, still someone whose presence is supposed to bring goodness. But here's what often happens. The world tells us we're small, that our voices don't matter, that our decisions are insignificant, and over time we start to believe that we were created to serve systems instead of serving truth. Don't fall for it. You were created to lead, not in arrogance but in accountability, not to dominate but to direct your life with righteousness. When you walk in a room, you should bring calm. When you speak, you should bring honesty. When you decide, you should seek what pleases Allah Almighty. And even if you're the only one trying to live that way, it still counts, it still matters. That's real leadership. Quiet, sincere, steady. And that's the kind of leadership Allah Almighty honors. So the next time you feel small because of your position in this world, remind yourself, your position with your Lord is what truly matters. You are not defined by your salary or your social status. You are defined by how you carry the responsibility Allah Almighty has placed in your hands. Lead your life with purpose. Govern your choices with truth. Influence your circle with mercy, because you were not just created to take orders, you were created to carry trust. And that's the most honored leadership of all. Have you ever caught yourself working harder than ever, yet feeling more afraid? You stay late, you overcommit, you stress about outcomes, because somewhere deep down you fear that if you don't do everything perfectly, things will collapse. The job will go, the income will stop, people will forget you. So you push yourself not from inspiration but from fear. That fear becomes your shadow, and no matter how far you run, it follows. But Allah Almighty never wanted you to live this way. You were not created to be ruled by anxiety. You were created to live in trust. Fear is heavy, faith is light. When you work with fear, your soul is chained. When you work with faith, your heart is free. The Quran gives us this promise: whoever fears Allah, He will make a way for him and provide for him from where he does not expect. It doesn't say those who stress more will find more. It says those who revere Allah Almighty, who put Him first in all their choices, will always find a way. A door will open, a path will be cleared, even if it comes from the most unexpected place. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, be mindful of Allah and He will take care of you. So ask yourself, am I working in fear or in remembrance? Am I sacrificing my peace to meet expectations, or am I surrendering my expectations to the one who already wrote my provision? Fear makes you rush. Faith allows you to pause. Fear tells you if you don't make this happen, no one. Faith tells you Allah Almighty is already taking care of it. Your job is to walk, not to carry the entire outcome. When you work with fear, you attach your self-worth to performance. If you succeed, you feel worthy. If you struggle, you feel broken. But when you work with faith, you know that your worth was never in results, it was in your sincerity, in your patience, in your trust. There's a silent kind of fear that many people carry. The fear of losing stability, the fear of not being enough, the fear that if they stop trying so hard, everything will fall apart. But what if I told you that your life doesn't depend on your hustle, that your future is not hanging on your to-do list, that your family's sustenance, your health, your provision, none of it is on your shoulders. It's on the shoulders of the one who never tires, never forgets, never fails. Working with faith doesn't mean doing less. It means doing better. It means showing up with sincerity, not desperation. It means giving your effort and then stepping back in full trust that Allah Almighty will take care of what's beyond your reach. Look at the stories of those who walked before us. Prophet Musa stood in front of a sea chased by an army. He didn't have weapons. He didn't have an escape plan, but he had faith. And Allah Almighty split the sea. Miriam, all alone in pain under a palm tree, was told to shake the trunk and dates fell. Not because she had strength, but because she had trust. Yunus was swallowed by a whale, surrounded by darkness. Yet Allah Almighty brought him out, not because he fought, but because he remembered his Lord. When you believe that Allah Almighty is enough, you stop living like everything depends on you. You start breathing again. You sleep better. You smile more. And even when challenges come, they no longer feel like the end. This doesn't mean life becomes easy, but it becomes peaceful. You begin to carry hardship with grace. You begin to make decisions with clarity. You begin to serve others without burning yourself out. Because you're not working from fear, you're working from faith. So the next time fear says you'll fail, respond with faith. How could Almighty is with me? How could I ever be lost? The next time fear says you're not good enough, respond with faith. Allah Almighty sees my efforts, and that is enough. You are not here to live in fear of tomorrow. You are here to walk today with faith. Your job is not to control outcomes. Your job is to stay connected, to do your part, and then to trust that Allah Almighty will unfold the rest. Have you ever felt like something inside you hasn't fully been expressed yet? That deep down, beyond the roles and routines, there is a part of you waiting to be discovered. Maybe it's a voice, a skill, a vision, something powerful, pure, and meant to serve others. That quiet feeling is not random. It is a sign from Allah Almighty, a reminder that He placed something special within you, a unique ability, a personal gift, a calling that no one else in the world can fulfill exactly like you. Too many people define themselves by their jobs. I'm a teacher, I'm an engineer, I'm a business person. But you are more than a title. You are not the label society gives you. You are not your income bracket. You are not your resume. You are a servant of Allah Almighty. And He placed something in you before the world placed expectations on you. Quran says, this verse reminds us that the differences in skills, positions and strengths are not accidents. They are part of the divine design. Your gift was placed in you for a reason. It's not for decoration, it's not for ego, it's for contribution, to bring value to the world in a way that is sincere and aligned with your purpose. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said every person is created with a skill and guided to what he was created for. That means you were not just made to fill space or pass time. You were made with precision, crafted with care, designed with intention, and the abilities you have, whether in words, in patience, in compassion, in strategy, are part of your personal mission on this earth. Some people are gifted with calmness, others with fire. Some with creativity, others with structure. Some people are problem solvers, others are peacemakers. Some people carry wisdom quietly, others inspire change loudly. And every one of them, when sincere, becomes a light. Your gift doesn't have to be famous. It doesn't have to be noticed by millions. It just needs to be used with intention. When you begin to recognize what Allah Almighty has placed in you, and you use it to serve, to heal, to teach, to uplift, that's when life begins to feel aligned. That's when work stops feeling like a prison and starts feeling like purpose. But here's what happens. The world teaches you to suppress your gift, to replace it with skills that make money instead of meaning. You may be excellent at storytelling, but you were told to pursue accounting. You may be brilliant in nurturing others, but society pushed you into management. You may feel joy in creating beauty, but the world told you it's not practical. And now you work hard, you survive, but you feel empty. Not because you're lazy, not because you're ungrateful, but because you've buried your gift under layers of what's expected. It's time to ask yourself, am I living from the inside out or from the outside in? Am I working to express what Allah Almighty gave me, or am I working to fit into someone else's mold? When you live from the inside out, and even if the pay is less, the peace is greater. Even if the world doesn't applaud, your heart feels full, because finally you are walking in your truth. This doesn't mean you quit your job tomorrow. It means you bring your gift into your work. You start small. You begin to teach differently, to lead differently, to serve with presence, to speak with authenticity. You begin to express what's already inside you. Perversion follows purpose. When you use what Allah Almighty gave you with sincerity, doors open, opportunities arrive, hearts connect, barakah flows. Not just in income, but in... You were not created to copy others. You were created to contribute something unique. So listen carefully to that inner voice, the one that lights up when you do something meaningful. That is the sound of your fitrah guiding you home to your calling. Don't wait for a title to give you permission. If Allah Almighty placed it in you, that's all the permission you need. Because the moment you stop suppressing your gift and start surrendering it to Allah Almighty, your life transforms, not just on the outside but from the core. And that's when work becomes worship and effort becomes elevation. Have you ever felt like life is one long race you never signed up for? Everyone is rushing, chasing deadlines, chasing status, chasing income, chasing validation. You wake up already feeling behind. You go to bed still planning for tomorrow. And somewhere in between you wonder, is this really how life is meant to be? The world tells you, don't stop or you'll fall behind. But your soul whispers, maybe I've already fallen behind on what most. That voice, that subtle ache in your heart is your reminder from Allah Almighty. You were not created to chase pressure. You were created to choose purpose. The Quran says, seek the home of the hereafter with what Allah has given you, but do not forget your share of the world. This verse is balance. This verse is freedom. It doesn't tell you to abandon your career. It doesn't tell you to ignore your responsibilities, but it tells you to prioritize what is eternal over what is temporary, to build your hereafter before decorating your worldly image. You see, when you chase the world, it runs away. But when you chase the pleasure of Allah Almighty, the world comes to you on its own at the right time and in the right way. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, whoever focuses on the hereafter, Allah makes his heart rich, his affairs organized, and the world will come to him reluctantly. Let those words sink in. Focus on what matters, and Allah Almighty will take care of the rest. He will bring you peace, order, and even success without you needing to destroy your soul to earn it. But too many of us have flipped this formula. We chase careers first and hope purpose follows. We run after numbers and titles, believing they'll bring peace. But peace doesn't come from pressure, it comes from alignment, from putting Allah Almighty at the center and letting everything else revolve around Him. You weren't created to live in anxiety, you were created to live in remembrance. And when you remember Allah Almighty, He arranges your life in ways no planner ever could. Chasing the world will tire you. Every achievement will feel hollow. Every success will demand more. But chasing purpose brings a joy that doesn't depend on outcomes. It's the joy of knowing you are walking the path you were created for, asking yourself, what am I really seeking? Am I building my image or building my soul? Am I working for applause or am I working for reward? The world is loud. It wants your attention. But purpose is quiet. It asks for your heart. You have to slow down to hear it. You have to disconnect from the noise to reconnect with your why. That doesn't mean giving up your dreams. It means cleaning your intention. If you want to succeed in business, do it with honesty. If you want to grow your career, do it with compassion. If you want wealth, earn it through service. Let your every move be a means to come closer to Allah Almighty, not further away. And when you live for purpose, you stop comparing yourself to others. You stop needing to explain your path. You stop fearing missed opportunities because you trust that what's meant for you will never pass you. And what passes you was never yours to begin with. There is so much peace in choosing purpose. You stop wasting energy on impressing the world. You stop chasing what burns you out. You stop allowing the calendar to run your life. And instead you start moving with clarity, with grace, and with contentment. Allah Almighty didn't place you on this earth to compete for recognition. He placed you here to fulfill a role that no one else can. And when you walk in that role, when you align your work, your time, your energy with what pleases Him, you begin to live differently. You smile with sincerity. You serve with joy. You plan your day around your prayers, not your paycheck. And every step forward feels lighter because you're no longer carrying the weight of the world. You're simply following the path He made for you. To pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, what do I need to let go of? What do I need to return to? Let go of pressure, return to purpose. Let go of control, return to trust. Let go of trying to please everyone, return to pleasing the one who created you. Because once you choose purpose over pressure, you don't just change your schedule, you change your soul. And that's where true success begins.